Okay, for a closer look at two sessions, let's bring in Sourabh Gupta. He is a Senior Asia-Pacific International Relations Policy Specialist. Sourabh, good to see you. So let's talk about this work report. It'll be closely watched because this is what will tell us about the prospects for GDP growth in 2025. What are expectations?
I think the expectations are same as it was last year, to have a growth rate of about 5%, around 5%, as was the case. China hit the target exactly at 5% this past year. The goal is to do reform, but do reform in the context of maintaining growth and stability in the economy. And therefore, I think the goal will be to again go to seek a target of 5% and hit the target of 5% GDP in 2025.
Right, Sourabh, high on the agenda will be fiscal stimulus. Could you tell us something about that?
Yes, an aggressive and a robust macroeconomic posture, I think, will be one of the most fundamental takeaways from this year's two sessions. China realizes that it needs to get consumer demand moving. Even more important than that, it needs to reignite confidence in the private sector to enable private sector investment. To do that, to create the grounds, fertile grounds for the private sector to feel a little bit more comfortable, is to have greater government support for the economy. You know, China rolled out important support measures in last October. Most of them were on the monetary side. The fiscal measures were not as strong, but the measures which will be announced at the two sessions out here will provide that support, and that I estimate that support in the form of special treasury bonds and special project bonds for local governments to be almost probably the largest sums involved, both in terms of numbers and in terms of percentages, than has been the case over the past decade. So it is going to be a robust macroeconomic posture which will be rolled out.
Okay, let's move to tariffs. We've seen these tariffs from the United States, from President Trump. China has taken retaliatory measures in response to that. But besides these retaliatory measures, what are China's options as it tries to protect its economy from the impact of these tariffs?
One of China's options is, and that option is to look inwards and try to do self-strengthening, do reform of the economy to make the economy stronger so that it can bear the brunt of these tariffs. Of course, it's now becoming more and more difficult to depend on the US market given the scale of the size and scale of the tariffs. And so part of China's goal from the export perspective is to also look for additional markets elsewhere. I mean, the EU is a huge market, ASEAN is a huge market. China is anyway diverting many of its production and its exports to those markets. So the goal out there is to sort of depend less on the US market, depend more on other markets. But at the same time, the goal of China's countermeasures is not necessarily just to punish the US, it is to set the stage to have a negotiation with the US which is fair and reasonable to both sides. And so, but China is showing that countermeasures will be assured, immediate, and measured when the US does so. The days of listening to sweet talk from Donald Trump, but being but having to face punitive measures from his administration are going to be over. China will not be turning its cheek, but it will also look to self-strengthen and try to keep getting its economy moving.
Right, so let's look at what happens domestically. I mean, in recent years, there's been a focus on shifting away from manufacturing toward technology, what President Xi calls new quality productive forces. How does technology fit into future planning?
This fits into in terms of the whole growth model that China is looking at. It's moving from high-speed growth to high-quality growth, productivity-led growth. This sort of technology-led growth, including in the advanced manufacturing sector, will be key for the future. It will also create its own consumptive demand and so help build out demand in the economy. China cannot and does not want to depend on excess investment-led and just property-led growth, which has created a lot of legacy problems, including debt problems. And this sort of consumer demand and advanced manufacturing-led will create its own kind of virtuous cycle, which will also suck in imports from abroad and allow China to have a more balanced economic structure. So technology-led growth is key and most important to it. But what I would caution is that one shouldn't only be looking at production side led growth, one should also be looking at consumption side led growth so that there's a balance between the two. And for too long, China has been a little too production centered and not enough consumption centered. And therefore, the role of government to play an important role in stimulating consumption, including in enhancing transfer payments to households, takes on an important role. And I think that's an area that will be discussed for the two sessions too.
Right, you mentioned advanced manufacturing, but what about advanced technology? You know, at the beginning of this year, the DeepSeek AI model was unveiled. I mean, took everyone by surprise, especially people here in the United States. It was even shock here in the United States because of the relatively inexpensive cost of developing this kind of technology. You know, at a time when China is facing sanctions from the United States, especially in terms of chip technology, I mean, what does DeepSeek tell us about Chinese expertise in the face of these US sanctions?
You know, that's a good point you raise out there because, you know, China's focus had been on, and continues to be, of course, on advanced manufacturing, but it is also looking to become a creator in the creative side of things, on the software side of things. It's not just about made in China anymore. It's also about created in China. So that created, of course, doesn't only have to be in high technology areas, but obviously places like AI, quantum are going to be the industries of today and the industries of the future. And China wants to be an important player in this area. And that's why we've had this restructuring of the science and technology ecosystem over the last 2-3 years, which continues forward going forward. And this has been done from a control tower level at the top party leadership level. And the goal out here is to build out China's basic science and technology, instrumentation capabilities, creative capabilities, so that China is not just dependent, as we talked about, just on the production side, but also on the creative side of things. And this can become, there are huge opportunities out here. I think DeepSeek has been a great statement in this regard. And also, just prior to that, we had that game. What was it called? One of the games which had massive international impact. And so China is showing that it has immense capability on the creative side of things also. The game was Black Myth Wukong, that one.
Okay, that's where we have to leave it. Sourabh Gupta, thanks for being with us.
You will.